Welcome to the Wealth Exchange. It's your man Ed from Jackson, your guide to kingdom wealth building. Thank you for joining the show and listening and watching wherever you are. On the Wealth Exchange, we're all about exchanging ideas, exchanging knowledge to help you grow in your wealth. On today's show, my goodness. So today, man, we got to jump in. We got to talk about some entrepreneurship, man, because there's a lot of people out there that get the entrepreneurial bug, but they're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know if this is really for me. I don't know what I should be doing. So we're going to tackle the entrepreneurial bug today, but I can't do this alone. This is too big to do alone. So I got somebody with me here. He is a beast when it comes to the finances as well as entrepreneurship, business. Let me just read a little bit about my man because I don't want to mess it up. So I got it here. I'm going to read it because I don't mess it up too much. My man is a native of Waterloo, Iowa. He descends from generations of servant leaderships. Generations, y'all. The Fergusons, the Harris, the Nash family. They're all well known for being champions in advancing civil rights, healthcare, and the welfare of African Americans in Iowa. This man is an attorney. He advocates for founders, philanthropists, entrepreneurial ecosystems. Woo! The value of philanthropy, corporation, and social justice. Now, this man says his mission is he wants to coach, man. He wants to advise families and businesses and communities on how to create generational wealth. And that's why I rocks with my man, because I'm all about that generational wealth too, man. He is the founder and president of the Iowa Center for Opportunity for Resources and Equity, which is a nonprofit, and their mission is to strengthen philanthropy practices and promote the collective of impact of leaders of color in the communities. Man, I could keep going on. I could keep going on, but without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. If you want to check my man out, you can go to his website. He's going to be at www.mrgreatnessofficial.com, on Twitter at Global Greatness, and then on Instagram at Mr. Global Greatness. I'm sorry, Mr. Greatness _official. He's got to be the official Mr. Greatness now, not those knockoffs. He's the official. So you can catch him, man. I'm here. I'm glad to welcome him here, Mr. Matthew Gilbert, Esquire, y'all. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show, Matt, man. Appreciate you having me, brother.
Thank you, Ephraim. I really appreciate us doing this. I really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this, and I'm so ready to share as many jewels as I can with your audience. I just think no better time than the present to make sure that families understand how important entrepreneurship is. So thank you for having me.
Man, I appreciate you being here, brother, man. I have so much respect for you and so much respect for your credentials and your background, not to mention your beard game is just excellent. So like, I lose like at least 30 testosterone points whenever you see that beard.
That's awesome.
So, man, hey, but let's talk about this, man. I want to get into this. And something I always say is there's really, if you want to get wealthy, you want to understand wealth, you have to understand how wealth is created in America, right? You got to understand how it's created. And if you go out and you look at, well, how is wealth created? There's really three main ways it happens, right? You can either get it, most people get it through real estate, right? Ownership, buying, selling, doing that. They do it through stocks, investing. And then the third way is entrepreneurship. They get it through entrepreneurship. Now, I get it. Maybe everybody isn't going to be a Bill Gates, right? Everybody isn't going to be an Oprah Winfrey, but I think everybody should learn to think entrepreneurially, right? No matter what. So can you talk about a little bit, man? Let's get into this. Like, why is that third leg? We're not going to talk about the real estate and investing today. We can get into that some other time. But why is that third leg, the entrepreneurship? Why is that so important for wealth creation?
Yeah. And I think entrepreneurship is very important when it comes to wealth creation. It's not a siloed experience, meaning that, it's going to take a little bit more than just entrepreneurship, but it definitely can originate there. I'd also add that there might be a fourth way of creating wealth, and that's stealing folks' wealth. We got histories and decades and legacies of just stolen wealth as it relates to a lot of cultural communities. So I didn't want to miss, really.
That's definitely has happened.
Yeah, where we're speaking from. But to really think of why entrepreneurship is so important is because, first and foremost, you cannot pass a job to your children, right? You cannot gift a job to the next generation. And so entrepreneurship offers you, first and foremost, if you are sustainable, and that's a really huge thing, but as sustainable entrepreneurship, especially if it's a taught skill in the family, can allow for your family generationally to overcome so many different hurdles, so many different challenges. And I think before we can even understand why entrepreneurship is important, we got to first understand what entrepreneurship is. And so I'll just clearly tell you, entrepreneurship entrepreneurship is just problem solving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Taking risk and problem solving. And so I think every family needs to be able to have a level of problem solving skill set within their family, especially as it relates to the African American community. We need multiple generations of entrepreneurs, multiple generations of problem solvers in order for us to really create that generational wealth. And so the importance of entrepreneurship really stems not just in what type of business that you're in or why you're in business, but it really is because once you create a business, these businesses have the ability to outlive you and your family, right?
Yeah.
So you create a business like Procter and Gamble or like Walt Disney, like all of these businesses have outlived their founders. And now these businesses have gone on, started off as very small businesses, have gone on to now create generations of wealth for the founders and for so many others. And so that's why I feel like entrepreneurship is a gateway to wealth creation, because you are able to pass that wealth forward, right? You're able to pass the business forward. The business can outlive you, but then the business also gets itself so involved in problem solving that now you actually become like a stakeholder a lot of times in what's going on locally or what's going on nationally. So entrepreneurship really is a skill set rather than it is just an option for so many families.
Right, right. And, you hit on something, man. I got to go back to that because anytime people drop these little nuggets, I can't just let them slide because you drop these little nuggets and then I got to go back to them. So you said something earlier, man. You were like, hey, you cannot pass on a job because you don't own it. It's not yours. You can't pass it on. And that brings something about even what the word talks about, that a man leaves a inheritance for his children's children. So we even the word talks about thinking generationally and thinking past yourself and thinking about, how do I leave something for not just my kids? How do I leave something for my kids' kids down the path? And you can't do that in a job. It's just not going to let you do it because you don't own that. And so many people, I think their mindsets. So we got to talk about that for a second, man, because I think when you talk
that's
about
okay.
entrepreneurship, it's a mindset shift, because so many people are bred, if I can use that term, bred to be workers and not entrepreneurs. Even me growing up, that's all I was preached, man. Go to school, get a corporate job, go to school. That was like the height of my parents' expectations because they had not fathomed the concept of ownership. You feel me? So how do you shift the mindset from being a worker bee? Not saying there's anything with people that have jobs and 9-to-5s. If that's your calling, if that's what God has called you to do, you rock that out. That's fine. But for the people that go to work every Monday and they hate it, how do we shift that mindset? You feel me? To even start thinking about entrepreneurship versus just thinking about the job.
Yeah. And so the shift in the mindset really is a discovery experience, right? Yeah. And so I want people to, if you're at your job and you don't like your job and you're trying to think about what do I do next, definitely consider entrepreneurship, but don't hang your hat on entrepreneurship as though it is the only solution for you. Because entrepreneurship, which is basically being able to problem solve within an organization, is just as valuable as entrepreneurship. And so when I think about, what sort of shifts that mind, I have to think about my own personal journey. Yeah. And my own personal journey was not one that was centered in, a ton of privilege, right? It was really around me creating opportunities because there were no opportunities for me. And so what I would think is that shift starts with first you finding out what's really pulling you. What's your why? What's your purpose? Not just for starting a business, not just for making money, but what is your purpose for getting up every day and enjoying this gift of life, right? What do you want to accomplish? Because those sorts of things start to bring and start to welcome and manifest entrepreneurship in your life. For me, I grew up seeing a lot of entrepreneurs, but I never knew entrepreneurship was an option for me growing up in Waterloo, Iowa. I thought entrepreneurship was something that, for me in my community, entrepreneurship was policed heavily, right? Because all of the street pharmacists and all of the other folks that were engaged in illegitimate opportunities or hustles, we'll call them that, that really didn't turn into anything fruitful, but maybe even offered a level of destruction to the community that wasn't
But here's the thing
highly
about that,
promoted.
though. Here's the thing about that, because I had the same thing. I grew up in Chicago, grew up in the Wild Hundreds. Shout out to Wild Hundreds. But those people had entrepreneurial skills. They just weren't exercised in the right way. They had the hustle game down because they just didn't have the legal part of the hustle game down.
Perfect. So you're right. You're exactly where I wanted to be. And that is, framing up, how do you make that mindset shift? A lot of it is just tapping into your own DNA, right? Tapping into what's already a part of you. And I know, especially for African Americans, our community is nestled in historically entrepreneurship, self-help, mutual benefit societies. Like really being able to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps is literally what entrepreneurship is. But it's deeper than that, because you got to have a reason to pull yourself up. And a lot of times that's motivated by your family, it's motivated by sometimes accumulation, but most importantly, it can be motivated by just who you are. And so for me, I found myself a fish out of water, not being anything other than an entrepreneur. So as long as I'm an entrepreneur, as long as I'm a boss, I'm in a very, I wouldn't call it comfortable, but I would call it, I'm in a very natural place for me, right? Once I start having a boss, once I start going into this corporate experience, now all the skills that I've been developing may not transition as easily, right? They have a place, but they may not transition as easily into that space. And so I feel like entrepreneurship is finding your why, is going to help you shift that mindset. Developing your voice, right? And developing your voice means being able to communicate what you're passionate about, being able to communicate those dreams that you're having, and then literally just getting sick and tired of being sick and tired sometimes is what pushes folks for entrepreneurship. But I don't tell people to wait on the sidelines with entrepreneurship. Use it as a continual lifelong learning opportunity. Teach your kids about entrepreneurship. You learn about entrepreneurship. Teach your spouse about entrepreneurship. Teach your parents about entrepreneurship. Because the more you learn, the more you share is mastery of this entrepreneurship thing. And to be honest with you, you're never going to become a master of it until you're in it, right? Until you're in it. And as long as you keep sort of leaving entrepreneurship to be this big, scary unknown, I think the harder it becomes to really make that shift. So as long as you keep talking about being a boss, until you start doing things to sort of receive yourself as a boss and to sort of be that boss, how are you using your time? How are you using your investments, your finances? How are you using the network that you have? Literally, entrepreneurship gives you a reason on how to explore those relationships and those networks in a unique way. And so it's not for everybody, but I definitely think it is a skill set that everyone can learn.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. Because I always say that everyone isn't necessarily made to be an entrepreneur, but everyone should think entrepreneurially. Because everybody, some people get dead scared, nervous about all doing sales or talking to folks or doing, and some people are called to be a part of someone else's mission and help them build up, what they're doing. God calls us into different capacities. So it's understanding what capacity that you're in. And if you're in that capacity, you said something that was so good about the internal entrepreneurship. So maybe you are called to work in somebody's ministry, or you're called to work at a certain organization versus maybe go start your own. Are you thinking entrepreneurially within that organization that you're called to? First of all, are you really called there? Then secondly, are you thinking entrepreneur? Because most people just, when they're on the job, let's be honest, man, let's be real. Most people go and they just show up. They do the bare minimum and then they go home and get their check. They're not really thinking about, oh, is this a job I'm called to? Is this something I should be doing? We just kind of show up. But if that's something you're supposed to be doing, something you like if you're a school teacher and you love being a school teacher, I'm not going to tell you to go stop being a school teacher to go start this business, but how can you improve the teaching experience? How can you think entrepreneurially about how you're educating these kids? How is there a way that you can do something outside of teaching that still supports teaching? Maybe you develop a course for how to homeschool. You know what I'm saying? You're still tapping into your skill, what you do, but now you just got this side hustle on the side where you're like, oh, I'm still teaching. I'm just showing other people how to homeschool. And now you're making money doing that. So this mindset shift is so crucial, man. But I want to talk a little bit about what holds people back, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
people love to talk a big game. And you said something really powerful too, like you only become an entrepreneur by doing entrepreneurial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something you just wake up one day and it's just like, oh, okay, you got to do it to start learning about it. So what is it that you think is holding people back, man? Why do people just keep talking a big game but not like actually living that life?
Yeah, a lot of it is centered in fear. I'd start there. I'd
Yeah.
say fear is probably the biggest barrier for so many folks. And the reason why I'm saying fear is just not because you're afraid of entrepreneurship. You're just afraid of the unknown. And with
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, there's a level of unknown that you have to be willing to accept, right? But what happens is you start to develop your skill sets around those unknowns, and those unknowns don't become scary monsters. They become
Yeah.
actual opportunities for you to really try to solve. So again, that's why I say entrepreneurship is all about problem solving.
Yeah.
But fear is probably the biggest. And after fear, I think it's
Mm.
personal finances. And so one of the barriers that I feel like a lot of folks struggle with is they don't even know how to manage their own money. And so they're forced to live in this check to check experience, right? The check to check life is not the life of an entrepreneur. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So it's hard to step away from, that guarantee value that you can get at the end of all
Mm.
of exchanging your time for money. It's
Mm.
fruitful for a lot of folks. For
Wait
some
a
people,
minute, I
once
gotta
you
stop you,
really
man. I gotta stop you. Go back
okay,
to
go
that. That's too
ahead.
powerful, dude. They are scared of letting go of the guarantee.
Yeah.
But is it really a guarantee though?
Well, that's the thing, is that much of it is an illusion already,
Exactly,
but
exactly.
much of it is an illusion, but it's also baked into, you talked about your parents and my parents as well, is like, you know, the industrial age is of what a lot of our
Mhm.
ancestors and our parents were sort of groomed under. And that was this very linear experience where you take one thing and then you turn it into something else, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we're not doing that when it comes to the jobs and the workforce. So you should definitely be a little fearful about your job as it relates to automation, as it relates
Mm.
to technology, as it relates to just the human potential, right? We are training young talent at rates, and they're doing things that even their grandparents couldn't have done. And so the level of needing to continue to retool the tool set is just so fast that a lot of people are just so comfortable with the skills that they have in the job that they have, because it doesn't require them to do anything in addition.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurship is this lifelong learning experience
Right.
where you're going to have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You're going to have to find a level of comfort in the unknown. But what happens is that it really shapes you as a human being, because now you start to look at not only your issues being a financial issue, it's a human issue,
Mm.
right? What are my thoughts about money, right? What are my beliefs about money? And entrepreneurship is a place where you really get to explore that. Every week
Right.
when you get a check
It's a
at your
journey.
job, you're not valuing money at the same rate, right? You're spending just because you can, right?
Mhm.
Whereas in entrepreneurship, you're spending because it has a purpose behind it, right? You're spending because it's an investment in the business, or it helps the business grow, or it's about, making sure your staff is employed and that they can earn a living, right? Entrepreneurship has a level of risk that having a job doesn't have. I should say that having a job doesn't exploit.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship, you're going to exploit these unknowns. Having a job, they can kind of hide the unknowns a little bit from you
Mm. Mm.
until you get that letter, or until you get that warning and you figure out this isn't going to work for you.
Right.
And so I think that there's a level of jobs, just meaning just over broke, that people kind of manifest.
I
And
like that.
it's
Just so
it's it's hard to leave that comfort to navigate another unknown. But I see a lot of folks do it when there are two-parent homes, when there are married spouses, married families. I see typically have a little bit more umph to kind of take on
Mhm.
that risk. But being a single parent, trying to raise a household and trying to nurture and take care of a household, entrepreneurship is difficult, right? You have to determine what are my needs versus what are some of the things that I really want.
Right,
And
right.
entrepreneurship
And
will
I like
really
what
help
you're
you get
saying,
in line.
man. I like what you're saying here, especially that just over broke. I can't let you slide on that because I like that.
Okay.
JOB just over broke. But that's why I emphasize so much on with free serve and everything I'm doing with the personal finance side, right? Because it's hard to take that leap if you're worried about how you're going to get out of debt or how you're just going to pay bills, right? You build that confidence to say, oh, I got some money saved up, or I got some investments saved up, I got some of this, and so it gives you more of a foothold to take that leap. And it also lets you take the leap, because I want to jump into this topic too, because I agree with you. Fear is a big thing. I think that's the mindset is a good reason why people aren't jumping into it. But then I hear people say this all the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have I got this idea, but I don't have I don't know how to get the funding. I don't know how to get the loan. I don't know how to do this to get the business going. Now, I always tell people that if the only reason you haven't started your business is because you don't think you have funding, then you didn't have a good enough business idea, or you don't have enough creativity, because there's tons of money out there to go get. You just got to go figure out how to get. And there's tons of ways to start a business on a bootstrap without even using any cash, especially nowadays, man, with the internet, the things we got available to us. I see people all the time starting up stuff from just getting on YouTube and going.
Yeah. So right now, like I said, technology has leveled the playing field a little bit. There is still a real unique, a lot of the work I do with Iowa Core is around advocating for minority businesses. And so there is a huge gap when it comes to accessing resources. So I don't want to undermine that.
Oh, correct.
But as we really relate to what it takes in these days to sort of start a business, literally you can start a business for less than $500 and literally within months be in a sort of a cash flow stream, especially as we navigate social media, especially as the direct to consumer engagement is just more fruitful now than it has ever been. There's no better time to start a business than now. A lot of what we're seeing is that a lot of African-American women are becoming some of the fastest entrepreneurs out the gate, right? Growing the business, starting the business, getting the business off the ground, getting the business resource, and then being able to take the business to the next level. What we want to see is that I know we're sort of engaging on small business, but what we want to start to see is a fast track and a fast lane access to businesses being able to go public, right? And that basically means have their shares, have their stock be able to be purchased on a stock exchange, right? Having an initial public offer where the public gets a chance to participate versus being more private enterprise.
Now, that's when you get into that legacy. When you
start that's when you get into that legacy.
Yeah.
I personally have a personal affinity to the private enterprise, right? The small business, the family-owned business. And the reason why is because these environments are also great environments to really work on some of the familiar relationships, right? You may have an issue with a family member, right? But once you get beyond this, the family matters, and we got to come together to kind of solve a business matter, you start to see a level of sort of discipline sort of be brought to the family as, hey, we're going to resolve issues in our family this kind of way. And so I found that, having a family business can really be a great opportunity to really help, build out and help explore and develop and nurture some family relationships that might be sort of originated in some trauma or around hurt feelings, but in this business context, it might be centered around our success, right?
But no better. You know what I found, man? You're spitting lit right there. But here's let's be 100. This is what I found when I've talked to some people about families and starting family businesses. Because I love that concept, right? And I just heard the story not too long ago in the news of a group of, I think it was 9 families in Georgia buying up land in Georgia, and they called it Freedom, Georgia. They're going to start their own city. Love that concept, man. That I love people thinking that way. But I hear people all the time say, "Oh man, I can't do business with Junebug. I can't do business with my cousin and them. They don't have the right mindset. Or when I come to them and talk to them about business, they just laugh that down, or they don't support me." So how do you get to that point where you're creating legacy with family if your family ain't on the same page?
Right. And so that's where we have to get to the real conversation around family. Sometimes family may not just be blood, right? It might be close friends, it might be like-minded individuals,
Right.
but just that private, closely held enterprise is a real value when it comes to really doing positive things. I think what ends up happening on any business level, you need to first find your tribe, right? Find those folks that support what you're doing no matter what. And I think that's what you're speaking to as the group in Atlanta, is like they first found their tribe.
Right.
And then they figured out what they wanted to do. Now, had it been, like some of the other folks that are just saying, hey, we're going to start this real estate fund, everybody invest in it, right? That's a little bit different type of relationship. That's a very transactional relationship, and it doesn't get to that transformation that I'm telling you about. So starting a business with close friends, family, or just folks in your ecosystem and tribe is a really cool value. But I do agree that not everybody in your family needs to be your business partner.
Ray and them
right?
can't join the business.
Yeah, I even encourage people to actually talk to a professional before they start working on trying to have a family business, right? And the reason why I'm saying that, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's another entrepreneur, but just talk to somebody first, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to bounce your best ideas off of people that know you the best, right?
Yes.
Because they only know you for who you've been, not for who you see yourself in becoming. And I think entrepreneurship offers this level of transformation that is really undefined. Like, I can't even speak to how reflective your business is on based on who you are. Basically, you are your business as an entrepreneur. And the more you work on yourself, the better your business is going to become. So some of those barriers that I talked about are a lot of those barriers, people not wanting to grow individually, right? Yeah, having access to resources, having money, those things will help accelerate your business, right? But to actually build a great foundation, a real solid footing for your business, really requires you to do some growing individually as well. And so being open to that process, I think, again, is why I say entrepreneurship is a lifelong learning experience.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And we can do this, right? It's once again, it's like you say, change the mindset, um, think about what it is, what we're going to do, find that why, find your tribe. Those are all so true. And there's no reason that if I have family members and or friends, like you said, I like how you distinguish that, because family doesn't necessarily always have to be, blood relations, right? It could be just other people around you. But once I find that group, we could pull resources together. We can pull, and resources isn't just financial. It could be knowledge. It could be networks. It can be, it could be prayer. It could be all kind of ways to pull these resources together to go in and tackle it. So if someone wanted to step their toes in, they're hearing us talk about entrepreneurship. They're like, yeah, man, I think I should be doing that. Yeah, I like what they're saying, but I don't know, man. Yeah, I know I like the job. I know the guarantee is an illusion, but I don't know. What would you say is a good way to start slowly stepping your foot in that arena? Like, how do you, are there some resources people should be looking at? Or some places people should go? Like, how do I say, you know what, I just want to step my toe in the water. I want to see if the water feels good. Because there's a lot of people that, real talk, they're going to probably have to side hustle their way to their They're going to have to keep their 9-to-5 to pay bills, get their money right, get their finances right, and they're going to have to work on their entrepreneurial stuff on the side, right? So how do you start kind of slowly get in the water while you're working a full-time job? And how, what steps or resources could you tell someone, hey, here's what you need to do?
Yeah, so there's 3 things that I encourage. The first thing is the education, right? So go get yourself a library card, right? Go check out a book about an entrepreneur that you know about, right? Or someone that you've heard of, or that someone that can really, motivate and help you understand a little bit more about their story. So explore and discover in that education component, right? And then the next piece is sort of find some inspiration from that story. All right, find some inspiration around you, because why you want to be an entrepreneur might be rooted in just kind of wanting to change your circumstances, right? But that why may not be big enough to sort of carry you through all the ups and downs that come with entrepreneurship. So I really encourage you to find a why that inspires you. And then, the empowerment piece, I think, is really important, right? Craft your ideas, right, by writing them down. I find so many entrepreneurs have all of these big ideas, but don't really have a journal to write anything down. Right. So write your ideas down, have them in a journal, find in that trusted tribe that I talked to you about, like within that trusted tribe, find someone that you can talk to. Find someone that you can bounce those ideas off. And I think first and foremost, that just arounds about the discovery process, right? Because I think discovering what an entrepreneur is, I think is first before you take any leap into entrepreneurship. Before you leave your job, before you quit, you need to first take some time to really learn a little bit more about yourself, as well as a little bit more about entrepreneurship. And exploring yourself, you begin to learn and understand your why, right? Why do you want to leave your job? You know, not just because you hate the job, right? It has to be bigger than that, right? Because entrepreneurship, I'll just tell you, is the worst job that you can create for yourself. Can you imagine a job that you cannot walk away from, a job that you can't fire yourself from, a job that you can't
do that
quit?
with entrepreneurship.
You know, like entrepreneurship is all of that. A job that you don't get no PTO, you know what I'm saying? All of that is entrepreneurship. And so you don't want to just kind of walk into entrepreneurship as though it's going to be this holy grail. You really have to be open to whatever experience is for you. Everyone's journey is going to be different. So I say, first and foremost, do that discovery. After you've done that discovery, you've educated yourself a little bit about entrepreneurship, you found some inspiration, and now you've talked to some folks that can help empower your ideas a little bit. Then I say, you know, start with, the simple things, right? Savings, right? You you want to go into business for yourself, but you are not a good saver. Those things are going to compete with themselves. So I would say establish a separate savings account, right? That after you paid all your bills, you got another account that is just specifically for your business idea. You're not spending that money. Is the just in case money for you to start your business, right? After you've done that, I think the third step would be to explore, what does your business really look like? Are there other businesses that are out there in existence that are like your business, right? And then start doing the planning stuff around, okay, well, what does my business do? What does my business need? Also, as an owner, what I tell a lot of owners and founders is don't forget about yourself. A lot of times you think that you're not going to be able to pay yourself, and that's only because you haven't written yourself into the budget. So make sure that you understand your own budget needs as it relates to your own household, right? So, hey, if I jumped into entrepreneurship, if I jumped into entrepreneurship full time, I would need to cover X amount of dollars. All right. So if you know right out the gate, you're not going to be able to cover X amount of dollars, then entrepreneurship may just be a side hustle for you for some time. Right. But along with exploring yourself and that discovery, entrepreneurship should also help you identify things that you wouldn't mind doing, things that you love to do, that you're passionate about doing. Entrepreneurship shouldn't be this sort of pull and tug of all the time of things you want to do and you don't want to do. Like, it should be a love from within. And so finding a hobby might be the first step. Maybe you do great knitting, right? And the first things you want to do is, instead of just giving away all of your knitting works, right? Maybe you want to just find a small group that was willing to purchase a few, right? Having a few exchanges of merchandise or of products or services starts to help you build some of that confidence for being an entrepreneur, because I think sometimes the hardest thing for an entrepreneur to do is to ask for money. Pay me for my value, right? Because
what you said is so key, man. Because once again, when you drop some nuggets, I can't just let you slide past it.
Go ahead.
You drop, man. So what you said is so key, man. Getting the confidence. I remember even for myself, man, when I first started teaching about finances and going to different churches and talking. I wasn't asking for anything. I was just happy to be someplace and speaking. I was like, hey, I'm talking. Hey, somebody wanted me to come speak. And I remember one of the first times I went to a church in Chicago, and they handed me a check for 30 minutes of talking, like close to $1,000 just for 30 minutes of talking. And that's the first time it hit me. This was maybe a good 8, 9, 10 years ago, that, oh man, people actually value what I'm saying. There's actually value. So there is something powerful about getting your first couple of $100 or just getting that validation for your idea versus just constantly giving it away. It's once you get that validation, once you get that group to say, yes, there's value here, it does do something for you on a confidence side that helps you want to keep going. So I couldn't let that pass over, because that's the exact same thing that happened to me. Because I was like, oh, I'm just talking, no big deal. And when somebody finally said, no, here, you're not just talking, you're blessing people's lives here. That's when it finally hit me. I was like, oh, okay. That's when
that's important. Yeah, that's exactly why I said begin with entrepreneurship as a discovery process, not as a task, right?
Exactly.
It's just a journey that I'm on, because you're going to have to learn a little bit about yourself, because you're going to learn what things you're good at, right? And what things you're not so good at. There might be things that you're good at doing right now that all you would have to do is just ask somebody to pay you to do these things, and literally you can start in that arena. Go ahead.
But most people don't recognize their own gifts. See, I've even struggled with this myself, and I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that struggle with this. Like for me, financial stuff comes super easy. Like just I can put together portfolio stocks, whatever. That's is nothing. It comes very easy to me. That's just kind of how I've been wired. But I also took that for granted for a very long time, because I assumed that because it came easy to me, it must also come easy to other people.
Yep, perfect. That's exactly what I tell I tell some of my coaching clients, is that, when we want to uncover our gifts, let's first look at our time, right? Where are we spending our time, right? And then look at our energy, like what things that we're doing requires us to put a lot of energy in, and it's sort of a lot of work, versus the things that really come really naturally and easy to us. And literally you'll discover your gifts
100%.
just literally tracking your own time. Where are you spending your energy? What things are you doing? What things are requiring a little bit more from you, and what things you can do without even a heartbeat. And I think, to be honest with you, it's the things that you do easy, it's the things that you're good at, it's the things that you be willing to do for free, are the things that really you want to start to set your entrepreneurial aims on, because those are going to be the things that can ultimately be duplicatable. And that's where entrepreneurship becomes valuable, when it's duplicatable, right? When you're able to teach your team on how to manage your business and how to think entrepreneurially, you're in a win situation. When you're able to teach your family how to think entrepreneurially, now you're in a win situation. But the mindset shift doesn't happen just like it's not a black and white sort of a thing. There is this area of gray. There's this area of gray that you have to navigate. And a lot of times it's going to be uncomfortable, but I encourage you to take entrepreneurship as a lifelong experience and just start the discovery, right? What would it look like? What would I do? And a lot of times you may not know, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean you can't keep your eyes and your ears open to what potentially may happen. Because entrepreneurs might just be able to see the right opportunity at the right time, and just be able to take the right level of risk and get involved. And literally, you might be able to sort of change your life.
Now, here's the beauty about that, though, man. Once you flip that switch of your own thinking, now you can flip the switch for your family and the generations after you, because all it takes is one person to flip that switch, man. Because you look at some of these, I don't know why Master P came to mind, but you think of some successful entrepreneurs like a Master P or somebody, and now their kids are also entrepreneurs, and now their kids also. So once you flip that switch is flipped. You feel me?
Literally,
It only takes one person to make the sacrifice, one person to make that flip, man. I want to go back to one other thing, and then we're going to wrap up here real quick. But I want to go back to what you said about putting some money away for your dream and your purpose. I always tell people, you got to give God something. Well, I don't care if it's a couple of dollars. I did the same thing with my own ministry when God first spoke it to me, and I went out and bought the domain name before I even had a plan of how I was going to even preach or teach or do anything. That domain sat for like a good 3, 4, 5 years with me just paying on it until it actually started growing into something. And I was still putting money. I'd put $10, $20, $15, $20 in a savings account for this, because I knew what God had spoken. You got to give God something to bless, man. You got to give something to him to bless. In the Old Testament, it talks about, I believe in Deuteronomy, somebody watching can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's God that gives us the ability to create wealth, create it. He didn't say, I'm just going to go throw it at your feet. You got to go out there and get it. I have given you what's internally inside of you, the ability to go create it, to go manifest it, right? But we have to take that charge of that and manifest it. So give God something to work with, put some funds away. I think that's powerful, man. So I want to wrap up because we can keep talking about this literally all day, bro. This is a good topic. I want to have you back.
Please.
I want to get more into the nitty gritty of that, stepping your toes in the water. And I would love to give people like a step-by-step playbook, right? Like do this first, do this second, do this third. So that way people out there can have like an actual roadmap to follow. So we got to definitely keep this conversation going, man. For people that are watching or listening, you remember to like, share, comment. Let us know what you're thinking about the subject. If you want to keep us going, let us know what concerns or issues you faced, right, as you've thought about entrepreneurship. Maybe you're an entrepreneur right now and you're facing some issues. Let us know those issues. Let us know that so we can come back on and we can tackle those for you, man. But let's wrap up. I want to hear a couple of key takeaways, man. So key takeaways. Let's do key takeaways. So for me, my key takeaway, man, is number one, entrepreneurship is a gateway to generational wealth, man. It's one of the doors, it's one of the gateways. You have to change your mind shift. You got to get out there, and the more you do it, the more it becomes a part of who you are, and it's a slow discovery process. So that's my takeaway for today, man. And then the takeaway, just to give God something. Just start. Give God something. Now, what's your takeaway you want to leave the people?
Yeah, no, I'm aligning just with you, and some things I want to leave with folks is that just think of entrepreneurship as problem solving, and just understand that there are two primary elements to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is both an art, right? It's the marketing, it's the design, it's the creative components, right? But also entrepreneurship is a science as well. And that's where we start to get to the diligence of why you can teach entrepreneurship as a skill, because it actually is a science, right? And I just want people to really know is that, every moment I get to really talk about generational wealth, I want to do it in context, right? And I have an affinity for the African-American experience, right? And especially as it relates to generational wealth, because I don't come from generational wealth. And so I just want people to know is that it only takes one generation to lose generational wealth, right? But it really takes at least 4 generations to make generational wealth a standard, right? To really lock generational wealth in, right? Where wealth becomes making more wealth, it literally takes 4 generations. So entrepreneurship is that sort of glue between one generation and the next. And I think it is that opportunity to really create what your family really believes itself to really want to manifest. And I love what you're saying is that give it to God and just watch these seeds be sown. And I think entrepreneurship literally is just planting a seed after planting a seed and just cultivating that seed. So if I just want to do anything with everybody today or going forward, I just want to continue to cultivate the seeds of entrepreneurship that we planted today.
Oh, that's amazing, man. Hey, appreciate you, man. Hey, where can people find you again? Remind the folks if they want to reach out to you and how you can help them if they want to get in contact with you.
Please reach out to me on Instagram at Mr. Greatness _official. You can check out my website at mrgreatnessofficial.com. You can also check out my tweet me some of your ideas or things that are going on at Global Greatness. Those are some of the easiest ways to reach out to me. Shoot me a DM, give me a call, shoot me an email. Those are some really good tangible ways to touch base with me. So I just be on the lookout for when we can do this again. And I really want to, as you mentioned, sort of get deeper into that roadmap. But today I just wanted people to understand that entrepreneurship is a discovery process, and you can literally lead that on your own.
Amen. Hey, appreciate you, brother, man. Appreciate you for joining today, man. I look forward to round 2 of this, because we're going to have a round 2. We're going to clock in and get a round 2 for this, brother. Hey, so this has been Ephraim Jackson, your guide to Kingdom Wealth Building with the Wealth Exchange. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, share. Let's get this information out. Let's exchange the wealth so we can build some generational wealth in our generations to generations to generations to generations. So remember, who the sun sets free is free indeed. Break every chain that binds you. Get free. Later.